with Haryanto Jaman. I'm Olivia Quay. Subscribe to the Straits Time channel so you never miss a single episode.
Now we begin with the latest figures. The Health Ministry confirmed 214 new COVID-19 cases today. 3 of them are work pass holders in the community. There are no Singaporeans or permanent residents among the cases.
Migrant workers living in dormitories make up the remaining cases. Today's count brings the total cases in Singapore to over 40,800, and more details will be released later.
Singapore saw its biggest decline in the number of people employed here in the first quarter of the year, and the fall is expected to get worse.
According to the Manpower Ministry, the number of people working here, excluding foreign domestic workers, fell by 25,600 in the 3 months to March 31st this year. This is worse than the estimated drop of 19,900 outlined in preliminary data.
Much of the decline was due to significant cutbacks in the number of foreign workers. But local employment also dropped slightly due to a sharper than expected fall in headcounts in trade and tourism-related industries.
Retrenchment also increased over the same period. Some 3,220 workers were laid off in the first quarter, compared with the 2,670 in Q4 2019.
We're now joined by Assistant Business Editor Joanna Seow to take this discussion further. Joanna, for a start, what are the sectors hardest hit in the first quarter, and are we expecting these jobs to come back?
Thanks for having me, guys. So not surprisingly, the MOM report said that the sectors where employment took the biggest hit were tourism and consumer-facing sectors like wholesale and retail trade, accommodation and food services, and arts, entertainment and recreation. Other industries like construction and manufacturing only saw a moderate impact. And then, there are of course the evergreen sectors like public administration, health and social services, and ICT. So in accommodation and food services and retails, I guess some jobs will come back as travel restrictions ease. So Singapore is actually trying to work on travel bubbles with other countries, where both see eye to eye on the level of health and safety precautions of the other. So we could see some more travelers coming in slowly. And jobs in eateries and shops should come back once the economy reopens, assuming that everyone didn't get too used to online shopping and food deliveries and actually go out and shop and eat, And okay, actually, of course, in some cases, companies may have actually found better ways of working, more productive ways of working with fewer staff. So that's actually good for them and for the economy, as long as the displaced workers can find jobs elsewhere.
Well, Joe, the report released today was for employment in the first quarter before the circuit breaker started in April. Manpower Minister Josephine Teo also noted that the full effects of COVID-19 certainly have not been felt in the first quarter yet. So what will Q2 look like?
Well, we're almost at the end of we're almost at the end of the second quarter now. So preliminary labor market stats will be out probably at the end of July. And I think everyone expects that they'll be worse because businesses will only have felt the full force of the circuit breaker measures in April and May. So like, for instance, I know of an office cleaning company, which saw revenue fall by about 50% in April, and then it fell to near zero in May. So they valiantly continued paying their cleaners their full salaries in April, but then in May they had to do some wage cuts. So it's very likely that retrenchments and unemployment have picked up in general, in the past few months. And but on the bright side, the government said before that they'll decide by, I think, the middle of June when to move on to phase 2 of reopening, which means that it could start, maybe even later this month. And Minister Lawrence Wong, he also told Bloomberg TV last week that when phase 2 starts, virtually the entire economy is expected to reopen. So that would definitely provide some relief to businesses and hopefully stave off more job losses and business closures.
Yeah, definitely it will pick up by then, Joanna. Now, even though employment fell, Joe, retrenchments did not see a huge spike in the first quarter. Why is this so?
Yeah, so retrenchments rose, but they were actually still lower than a year ago. But I mean, some people aren't captured in the retrenchment stats, like people whose firms employ below 25 workers, because the retrenchment stats only cover, firms who employ at least 25 workers. So the MY report actually shows that there was an increase in the number of employers who made other temporary arrangements for their workers instead of taking the permanent step of firing their staff. So there were 4,190 employees who were asked to work fewer days in a week, or they were temporarily laid off in the first quarter. So that's actually 5 times as much as the number who did so in the previous quarter. And Manpower Minister Josephine Teo said that this suggests that measures to preserve jobs are working. So I think the general sense is that if workers have to choose between getting less pay and keeping their jobs, or the company closing down and then losing their jobs, they would probably choose the first option because at least they're guaranteed of employment.
Right.
Well, Joe, Trade and Industry Minister Chan Chun Sing reiterated yesterday in his national broadcast that some 100,000 jobs and trading opportunities will be created to help Singaporeans get employed. The government also announced 4 budgets with a strong focus on saving jobs. How far do you think will all these go to mitigate the unemployment figures here?
Okay, so the 100,000 opportunities are part of the SG United Jobs and Skills package, which was announced at the 42 budget. So I did some calculations before, kind of like how many people will be looking for jobs this year, because I think there are 4 main groups. So first, there are those who are retrenched. So some economists have predicted anywhere from 45,600 to 200,000 job losses this year, but that was before the latest raft of support measures were announced. The bulk of those people are expected to be foreigners. So maybe you can expect like half of that to be locals or less. And then second, there are some job seekers who are not captured in the retrenchment statistics, or people who like feel forced to resign. And then there are also about 76,200 Singaporeans and permanent residents who are already unemployed in March. And then finally, there will be fresh graduates joining the job market. So this is a rough estimate, but like a graduating cohort from the unis would be about 16,000, and then 23,000 from polys, 13,000 from ITE, and then there are also some who graduate from private unis. So of course, not all of them will need jobs because some will maybe continue their studies or go to NS. But if you add them all up, I think that it's a lot more than 100,000. So I mean, of course, 100,000 won't cover all of the people who are looking for jobs, but at least I think a substantial number will get help.
Well, thank you so much, Joanna, for that sharing. That was Assistant Business Editor at the Straits Times, Joanna Seow.
President Halimah Yacob has called for the producers of a popular local podcast to apologize for their misogynistic comments, saying women are not objects who should be made fun of. In a Facebook post today, Madam Halimah said she received many emails about podcast OK Let's Go, which aired sexist and lewd comments about women in some of their episodes. She said women do not deserve this treatment by OK Let's Go, adding that healthy communities will be undermined by such podcasts. She also noted that educating a community on respect for women is a lifetime process, and this duty resides with everyone, particularly those who have great influence over people through social media. Singapore's highest Islamic authority, Mufti Naziruddin Muhammad Nasir, also raised concerns on Instagram, saying that influence should be used to create positive change and not to perpetuate sexist attitudes and behaviors.
The Chief Executive of the Info Communications Media Development Authority will step down on Saturday and is expected to enter politics in the upcoming election. Party sources say Mr. Tan Kiat Hao could be fielded by the People's Action Party in East Coast GRC. He is the latest in a string of senior public servants who left their posts. Mr. Ip Hon Weng left the Health Ministry and Mr. Desmond Tan stepped down as Chief Executive of the People's Association. Ms. Ng Ling Ling, who was the Director of the Health Ministry's Office of Health Transformation, has taken on the role of Senior Consultant. The next general election must take place by April 14th next year, and political observers say the polls could be held in July.
Another round of self-disinfecting coating will be applied to 26,000 HDB flats starting from the end of the month. The first coating was applied in April. It's able to last for 3 months, killing bacteria, viruses and fungi upon contact.
In other news, a high-level committee has been set up to create jobs for Singaporeans in the digital economy, help small businesses go online, as well as ensure no citizen is left behind by technology. Communications and Information Minister S. Iswaran chairs the committee with Trade and Industry Minister Chan Chun Seng, and he said the badly hit retail and F&B sectors will get special attention.
Another area of focus is to ensure that all segments of the population benefit from the digitalization push, starting with hawkers and seniors. Here's more.
Every sector now, for example, whether you're in retail, whether you're in food services, you could be in financial services and so on, every sector now needs digitalization strategies. And people who are in that sector, who may not necessarily be deep tech people, but those who understand both the sector and the nature of the business there, but also have enough knowledge of technology in order to see how it can become an essential part of the business operation and strategy going forward. So that's why you see many businesses now beginning to find new ways, whether it is the existing staff being trained to acquire these new skills, or bringing in new people to do those sorts of functions for them in their organizations. So what we are trying to do is identify those sorts of opportunities and then find ways to place Singaporeans in those jobs and give them the appropriate training. So a couple of specific things I would like to highlight to you. One that you're already familiar with is our TESA mid-career effort, because we do know that there is a cohort of mid-career professionals out there who are looking for opportunities in these sorts of sectors. And the TESA Mid-Career Advanced Program is really to help them make that transition, giving them the opportunity then to start careers in these new domains. The other area that we've just introduced is the company-led training initiative, which really is to work with companies to generate 3,000 job opportunities over the next 2 to 3 years. But what is most important here is we're trying to identify the jobs, place Singaporeans in those jobs, and then give them the training. So that's the crux of the effort that we're doing on the jobs front. Then if I go on from there, we're also looking at the whole digitalization effort across the economy and in society. So you know that we have been running this SMEs Go Digital program for quite some time now. And SMEs, as you know, are the largest cohort of companies that we have, and they collectively employ a significant proportion of our population in terms of our workforce. So what we want to do is help the SMEs make this transition. So to date, about 20,000 SMEs have adopted various kinds of SME solutions. What we want to do is to accelerate that process. So one of the initiatives that you've heard of is this Digital Resilience Bonus, which is targeted in particular at two sectors which have been probably hardest hit by this whole COVID-19 and the circuit breaker measures: retail and food and bev. So as we open up and they try and find ways to restart their business and start continuing linking up with their customers, digital solutions, whether they are customer-facing solutions like online marketing, digital payments, and the ability to then fulfill the order by doing deliveries. That's one side, customer-facing. Internal to the organization in terms of, say, inventory management, HR management, and so on. So those are more productivity enhancing, efficiency enhancing measures. And ultimately also higher order things like data analytics and so on. So for all of this, we're trying to support them. And this digital resilience bonus, and I think they can get up to about $10,000 if they adopt pre-qualified solutions from our SME Go Digital program. I think this is going to be an important thing for them as well. So that's on the enterprise side. But we are also moving, as you have heard, and I want to emphasize, deeper into the community, in a sense, into domains and segments of our society which some might consider to be the most challenging in terms of digitalization. So hawkers, for example. Hawkers, in a way, are at the front line of our business interaction with the community. Everybody goes to a hawker center to buy food. It's part of our culture. So if we can get hawkers onto, for example, the SGQR digital payment solution, that at the very atomistic, at the very grassroots level, we are making a very significant transition. And that will have not just the impact at the transaction level, but at a systemic level. It sends a clear signal about what we are doing and how we are adapting to a new environment. So the Hawkers Go Digital is an important part of the work. And the other aspect is, of course, Seniors Go Digital. Again, our seniors would be seen as a cohort of our population who might perhaps be least inclined to adopt technology. Now, I want to say at the outset, my own view is age is not the barrier here, because I've seen many seniors who have actually demonstrated that it's attitude that counts. So I've seen many who have adopted technology and been really using it for all kinds of things. So and if you look at other countries like China, for example, where the use of QR codes for payment, it's ubiquitous, and everybody who went to China used to comment about this, how remarkable it is and the way it's done. So it is not beyond our ken by any means, but it requires an effort. And we need to also acknowledge that there may be concerns and we have to deal with those concerns. It's not digitalization for the sake of digitalization. It's about digitalization as a means to a better life. More conveniences and more ways to access information, and if you're working, to be more productive and so on. That's the objective, enhancing our lives. We want to cover all 112 hawker centers over the next 2 to 3 months in successive phases. And we also want to reach out to the 100,000 seniors over the next 9 months or so by March next year. So this is a major effort, both in terms of its scale and its scope. And there are many, many segments of the population we are trying to reach out to. We also have to find ways to, in a sense, the different agencies are involved in this effort, whether it is IMDA, the new SG Digital Office, Enterprise Singapore, NEA, JTC, and so on. And as a result of this, we have decided that government has to double down and make a concerted push for digitalization. And to oversee this, we are establishing a ministerial committee which will be jointly chaired by me and Minister Chan Chun Sing. And here, through this committee, we will be able to oversee and coordinate the effort towards enterprises, whether they are large enterprises, SMEs, or micro enterprises, and also the digital inclusion and digital society effort, whether it is with seniors, our broad population, and our workers, and so on. Because the issue is execution, but also about digital inclusion, working with partners and addressing concerns that are, quite real, and we need to find ways to deal with them. So digital inclusion, meaning we have to make sure we are reaching out to all these parties like hawkers and seniors, and therefore partners become very important. So the hawker center associations, the hawker representatives, the shop owners association, and so on the ground, they are going to be very important partners for us. Same way, the grassroots organizations and the grassroots advisors, because working with them, we will be able to go deep into the community, establish the linkages in order to get this transition done. And I would say the overriding economic focus is job creation, the points that I made right at the start. So that is going to be a major priority, how we can work with the companies and the labor movement in order to find jobs and then place Singaporeans in those jobs and train them. So job creation and job opportunities in order to place Singaporeans in there is a top priority. Getting SMEs onto digitalization and the micro SMEs and the hawkers. This is going to be the immediate work that we can do. It builds on what we've already been doing. the push in terms of digital inclusion on the ground, especially with our seniors, will then gather momentum. And as we deploy digital ambassadors on the ground and as the circuit breaker measures get progressively eased, we'll be able to do more in that regard.
That was Communications and Information Minister S. Iswaran outlining the focus of the new committee set up to create jobs for Singaporeans in the digital economy.
You can watch the full interview on the Straits Times YouTube channel. Let's now go to Dylan Ang for the global headlines.
Thanks, guys. French President Emmanuel Macron says France has marked its first victory in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. While he was keen to stress the fight is not finished, he announced that all of mainland France, including Paris, will go into a green zone of a lower state of alert starting today. This will see the reopening of cafes and restaurants in full, as well as the resumption of family visits at retirement homes. All French schools except high schools will also reopen on June 22nd. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced that non-essential stores in England can reopen today after months of the UK coronavirus lockdown, which has been in place since March 23rd. The British Retail Consortium says the lockdown has cost non-food stores £1.8 billion a week in lost revenue. Stores will, however, have to continue observing hygiene and social distancing regulations, with restricted numbers of people allowed inside and limitations on trying products. The UK currently has the 5th largest number of cases in the world, with 295,889 cases, and the 3rd largest death toll at 41,698 deaths. Beijing declared an area surrounding a wholesale market high risk on Sunday after dozens of new coronavirus cases emerged, sparking fears of a second wave of infections in the city. Health authorities reported 44 new infections in the capital over the weekend, all of whom were linked to the Sinfati wholesale market, which has since been shut down. China said the market's workers and some 46,000 living in the vicinity will now undergo testing. Companies in Indonesia's capital Jakarta have been told to implement new working hours to prevent overcrowding on public transport during peak hours. From today, employees at government ministries, state firms and private companies will start work between 7 and 7:30 a.m. or between 10 and 10:30 a.m. Authorities say the new staggered hours will allow commuters to maintain physical distancing and are aimed at preventing a second wave of infections as the country begins easing restrictions. And those are the global updates. Back to you guys.
He retired from football more than 20 years ago, but Fandi Ahmad's reputation still precedes him. Last week, the 58-year-old topped an Asian Football Confederation poll for the greatest Eredivisie player.
Fandi outranked Park Ji-sung, Lee Yong-pyo and Shinji Ono, names you may recognize, and we're very pleased to welcome the man himself on The Big Story. Thank you so much for joining us, Fandi, and of course, congratulations to you. To start off, you played for Groningen from 1983 to 1985 when you were just 21 years old. Could you describe those years and how did your time in the Dutch top flight affect the rest of your career?
Definitely, it was a dream come true because I think I gained a lot of experience. But before that, I made a mistake. Maybe not. I should have signed for Ajax Amsterdam in the earlier year. 3 years contract, but then importantly, when I was in Europe, especially in Groningen, it does a lot of things for me. You know, it did a lot of wonders for my football career because I improved a lot as a player. Physically, I was stronger and I played better. When I came back, it's much easier to play against the Asian players. You know, and I really relished my time there because I gained so much experience, getting chance to play with the top players in Holland and as well as in the UEFA Cup. So when I came back, I thought it was quite easy for me to score goals, to play and help my teammates. And it was a wonderful because before that, I think I had some exposure in Ajax for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and I got good experience playing against and with Clive Van Basten, Gulli Rijkaard, Jesper Olsen, Molby, and then I went to a country where I signed in Indonesia, Galatama, Niak Mitra. That also helped me because that was one of the toughest league in Asia back then because it's very, very physical, hostile environment, and as well, we playing at home most times at 3 p.m. The weather is so humid and very hot. It teaches me how to be strong mentally. So when I went back to Holland, I was ready, but I did not prepare because of the Ramadan, because then the training was different, and that hurts me a bit in terms of my physical, condition in Holland. I suffered for almost two months, yeah, and I had a torn quadricep, which takes a very long time to recover. I was disappointed in the beginning because people expect me to perform when the day I was there, the day I came to Groningen. But I was patient and I got good support from my teammates, my coaches and the physios. That's how I grew because when I was training on my own, they mostly put me in the gym, do a lot of strength work. I was quite bigger size, more solid, more fast, stronger, and when I was ready about 2 months later, my first two matches was the most important of my life. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
Fandi, your son Iksan is playing for a Norwegian club now. What things have changed since you were in the Netherlands compared to what Iksan is undergoing now?
Definitely. Actually, Irfan Iksan was there 2 years ago. I brought them for training trial as well, and it was very different because the training regime totally different. During our time, when I was even in Groningen and Ajax, we had usually when we go for training camp, there's always a long run, 5-click run, eight-click run, in the forest, on the beach. But now it's all done on the field and in the gym itself. So now you can see the players now are bigger, stronger physically. But if our days, in our time, if we had the sports science, sports technology, I think our players will be much better because technically those older players of the 60s, 70s, 80s are more skillful than the current generation. So in that sense, I think football has changed, but people change, football will change. You see, importantly now is the desire and fire. So I mean, it changed a lot. And Iksan even told me that he has never trained so hard like in Europe. Yeah. So I think the game is faster, and you need to play different types of football in different countries. Some are very technical, some very tactical and physical. So as a footballer, you must accept and adapt. Oh, that's the trophy I won as a most skillful player. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, Fandi, are you disappointed or disheartened that your time in the Eredivisie didn't kickstart a wave of Singaporean or ASEAN players playing in Europe? Because you just mentioned so many benefits to playing in Europe.
Definitely, because during our time in ASEAN, I know, Asia, yes, because there are many talented players and skillful players, but I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't want to venture. Maybe they didn't have the right contact. They don't have an offer. They don't have, during our time, not many agents. It's all about scouts. But during those days, it's about scouts and not agent. But if they were to sign you, that means you have played at high level. That means you have played in World Cups. Some like the Korean players as well as the Japanese players. In the mid-90s, about 20, 30 players of South Korean and Japanese players are playing in Germany. I know I recorded it before. But I think some of the players are more contented, getting good salaries. For them is enough, but they don't. I feel they should challenge themselves more because they have the talent, a gift from God for them, and they work very hard. I think they should. For me, I'm just unlucky. After the 85 season, I didn't sign the contract because I couldn't sign the coach because of the work permit. I went back to Asia. I joined KL. After that, after one season, I think the first season, 86, we won the league title. But 87, when we played in an intercity tournament with some European teams, even the Korean teams, Lutzen, FC Groningen, we were in the final. So KL were in the final. You know, we played against the Korean Seoul, a very strong team, and then Lutzen from Switzerland. We went to the final against Groningen. After that, the new coach, he signed me for 3 years. I went back to Holland for 2 months training, and then I already signed. But in the end, again, it troubles me because of the work permit and because we are not from the EU, and also because the second season when I was in Groningen, I was injured. I didn't have enough time of play. That's why, if you see, I played 36 matches, but mostly second season, I mostly come in as a sub. And I think in the second season, I only score 2 goals. But that doesn't stop me from wanting to go back to Europe. And because of that work permit, I couldn't get. I went back to KL and continued my journey there. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Fandi, for sharing with us, all good memories there, and certainly thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. That was Fandi Ahmad, who represented Singapore from 1979 to 1997.
He just topped an AFC poll on the greatest player from the Confederation who's played in the Dutch Eredivisie. Well, let's go back to Dylan for what's also in the news.
As US President Donald Trump turned 74 on Sunday, an incident a day earlier in which he appeared unsteady on his feet revived questions about his health. The widely circulated video on Saturday showed Mr. Trump walking tentatively and unsteadily down a ramp after delivering a commencement speech at West Point. He also appeared to have trouble lifting a glass of water to his mouth, beginning the gesture with his right hand but then using his left hand to help raise the cup. In India, Bollywood has been shocked by the death of actor Sushant Singh Rajput. He was just 34. The young star's body was found at his home just days after the death of his former manager Disha Salian. While lauded for his portrayal of cricket star MS Dhoni, Rajput is believed to have battled depression. Police said investigations are ongoing. It was party time this weekend for the gorillas at London Zoo as they got ready to see visitors for the first time in nearly 3 months. The zoo, which usually only closes for Christmas Day, says its nearly 200-year-old history makes it the world's oldest scientific zoo. It had closed in March as the UK went into lockdown. It opens again today, albeit with restrictions on visitor numbers and paw print markers. Staff laid on a special celebration for the gorillas ahead of the reopening, with treats like nuts, leeks and broccoli. That was what's also in the news. I'm Dylan Ang.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thanks so much, Dylan. Well, those are our top stories for today. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on A Big Story.